What did your parents allow you to do that you would never allow your own children to do? My dad used to load about 6 of us kids, me, my brother, and some neighborhood kids, up on the step bars on the side of his van. We would stand on either side of the van. Then he would drive around the block and jerk the wheel to throw us off. We freaking loved playing that game. My parents put me on an airplane from Peru to USA to visit my grandmother whom I had never met for a month. I was 7 years old at the time and spoke very little English. Back then, 1964, kids traveled alone without an airline stewardess to watch them or deliver them to their families. It was a 12-hour flight on a propeller plane. When I got to Miami, I started crying because I was confused, and an airline worker picked me up and sat me on the counter of the immigration officer to get my passport stamped. They located my grandmother and she gave me a hug, so I went with her, even though I had no idea if she was really my grandmother or not. When my kids were 7 years old, I kept thinking, how in the world did my mom think this was a good idea? They let me date a 19-year-old when I was 13, and we always hung out with his creepy 20-something friends who tried taking advantage of me several times. I thought I was so grown, but looking back I'm horrified. My siblings and I used to play a game where we walked along the train tracks behind my house and tried to wait as long as possible before jumping away when the train came. Last person standing on the tracks was the winner. Become pretty overweight. Hang out by the train tracks. Nothing good goes on down by the train tracks. My parents would buy me cigarettes when I was around 15. Never forced me to wear a seatbelt. I remember only once having to put it on quickly when she got pulled over. Take non-alcoholic drink to school for lunch. Just to elaborate a little, it was when non-alcoholic drink just came out as a thing. Sharps was what we had. It came out in '89. I was 7 or 8 at the time. The teacher surprisingly did not complain. They were more upset that our mother let us watch The Simpsons. I frequently traded my drink for pudding cups. Pudding was considered junk food and we were not allowed to have that. I think teachers would crap themselves now if a 7-year-old brought na drink to school. But I also remember getting those packages of candy cigarettes at the convenience store. So different times indeed. Climb back and forth from the front seat to the back seat of the car while driving. Brew my own drink. When I was 15, they were far too lax about letting me drink. My mother really wanted me to be popular and social. I'm 44 now and 2 years sober. Become comfortable with mediocrity. If I failed in school, I was punished. If I succeeded and did well, I was given the same response as if I just skated by. The best rewards come from internalized rewards. But I never learned that success should be rewarded. So I never developed the ability to recognize my own achievements. Stand on the center console with half their bodies sticking out the sunroof as I drive at 50 miles per hour down some twisty country roads. Play at the beach or in the sun without sunscreen. Eat as many sweets as I wanted to. Eat as much McDonald's as I wanted to. Skip brushing my teeth at night. I'm now 21 and I had lots of problems with my teeth and digestive system. I managed to fix them all up in my teens and now I'm strict with myself. My parents didn't care if I got crappy grades. I won't let my kids make the same mistake I have. Use the internet unsupervised. I sent my first nude at 14 years old to my boyfriend when he was 13 and had a long-running dirty email chain. He saved that crap to his phone and his dad found it 6 months later when he took my BFS phone away because he was staying up too late and was tired at school. Still weirds me out a bit. Cause I know that's probably what they think about when I'm around as it's that same girl. Post my address on a pen pal group on 90s internet. A few men Xeroxed copies of their peens and wrote me explicit letters. Make my kids scared to talk about their emotions to the point that they become depressed because nobody knows how they feel. So it becomes hard to get friends because they are too afraid to open up. Also make them scared to cry because they think it's wrong and I'm going to make fun of them for it. Walk to the 7-Eleven, nearly a mile away, alone at the age of 5 to get her a snack. I had to steal my own stuff since she only gave me money for what she wanted. Smoke weed without sharing it with my parents. Swim in a drainage ditch that the water from a cornfield drained into. Ride in a car without seat belts or car seats. My parents let me skip as many classes as I wanted in high school. It was technically under the guise of only being allowed to do so if my grades were good, but they never exactly checked on it. They had a lot of trust/thought I was a genius. It took me a long time to be able to discipline myself into actually studying/going to class. I fumbled through university as a result, having had no proper routines in place. I know it was ultimately up to me, but I didn't have the foundation to be disciplined early on. I'm a mother of twins and a third child. They are all grown now, but when they were growing up we always had a candy drawer in the kitchen. At first, the kids totally drained the candy drawer, but after a few weeks of having it around, they became used to it and would not overdo the candy. It was an experiment at first, to see if they could be taught self-discipline. When I was growing up, on the other hand, candy was taboo and that made me hoard candy every time I got it. Stay home alone from age 6. My parents let my brother get away with so much that he just plays computer games all day screaming, drinks nothing but soda, and has one fruit or vegetable on a good week. With me they could not care less about my education, but I have to eat healthy and have to keep quiet. My kids will be going outside and will be eating their greens. If they don't like something there is always something else. I will also treat every child equally. Be lazy and spoiled regarding laundry, chores, etc. Playful contact football in elementary and middle school. I remember 4 separate occasions where paramedics had to be called after hard hits, and these were like 10-year-olds. Being taken off the field in a stretcher in dead silence from the crowd, then the game would start up like nothing happened. Watch The Exorcist at 9 years old. My parents were very lenient about letting me watch pretty much anything on TV, but that film gave me nightmares for weeks. My parents were pretty lenient with my siblings and I about underage drinking, and when they found out we were smoking weed, their only advice was to simply be smart/careful. I'm not going to force my kids to sneak around until they are 21 if they want to do either, but they sure as crap aren't going to have the freedoms I did at 14 and 15 years old. Granted, I didn't ever really do anything till I was 17 over 18. My older sister was the one who went wild really early, but that basically set the grounds for the rest of my siblings as what we were allowed to do. When I was 14, I got a motocross bike for my birthday. I would ride it from our house in town, using Allison trails where I could, out to my buddy's house in the country, where we would then ride wherever we liked. Way too fast, with no helmet. Often these rides included carrying guns, so we could shoot stuff. Sorry, son. Those were the good old days. Get heavily into politics at a young age. I absolutely love politics, but it puts a lot of stress on a middle schooler, too. My mom used to buy me cigarettes when I was a teenager. I thought it was cool. Now that I'm a parent, I'm like, frick. Letting me microwave, and later deep frying, the same meal every day for a decade. Drink soda. Become a picky eater. I know a lot of it is innate and developmental, but my parents definitely enabled me. I don't hold any ill will. My sister was very sick for a few years. They had bigger battles to fight, and I'm doing my best to overcome it now. But it's really hard. I'm a while off from kids, so I have time to figure it out. But man, I don't want my kids to A, be those bratty kids who whine about not liking perfectly normal foods, or B, have the anxiety that comes with being nearly 30 and terrified that you'll gag up food in public when trying something new. Smoke dope, drink, smoke cigarettes, stay up until I went to bed, as long as did these things at home. I was smoking dope before, during and after school. This was 7th grade. I was 13. Not as cool as it sounds. I'm indecisive as hell. Can't hold a job or relationship. Suffer through massive depression alone, because narcissist mom felt that I had nothing to be depressed about. Smoke tobacco at home. Can't stop what they do out with their mates, but it will stop them from making it a regular habit. Being home unsupervised. I was a lock away kid cause my mom worked nights. I saw her for maybe 2 hours a day. She would get off work, take me to school, and sleep till I got home. So from 5 PM to 7 AM I was by myself. A lot of shenanigans. Unrestricted TV time. Back then we didn't have Netflix, Amazon Prime, or YouTube on the TV. My kids don't have to deal with commercials, so the eldest, when he was 5, has had accidents vs he didn't want to stop watching to go to the bathroom, even though he knew we could pause. When my mother discovered how badly I was being bullied, she sent me to learn some self-defense with a friend of the family who taught judo and encouraged me to make them eat the freaking floor tiles. You're big enough. Honestly, my mom was way too lax on me. I never had any real chores or consequences if I didn't do the few I had occasionally. I find self-discipline very hard, and I feel it would probably be easier if I'd had that. I'm obviously not going to give my possible future kids enough chores to drown in, but they'll probably be expected to help with the dishes and with cooking sometimes. IDK. Staying up super late, avoiding homework and studying, getting addicted to video games, assuming I'd never get grounded. I never did. My parents were terrible at raising me. I like to think I fell pretty far from the tree. I want to read books with my kids, go biking, do homework with them. My parents just fed me and bought me garbage I didn't need. Zero interest in my hobbies. They only started asking questions when I'd leave the house for the day and stole money and cigarettes from them. Watched The Sopranos when I was around 8 until I called my brother a cocksucker. After that I was banned. They left me unattended during the summer to watch TV, so I grew up on the likes of Jerry Springer, Maury, Montel, Ricky Lake, etc. during the summers. Super conservative folks, too. Go figure. Watch TV all day every day for an entire summer break. Maybe they are depressed and unhappy and bored? This might seem silly to some of you, but experience only safe things. As a small example, as children we weren't allowed to have soda pop or juice, bad for teeth, devoid of nutrition, unless we were sick and needed empty calories. As a female in such a family, I was constantly reminded of the horrible things that would happen if I wandered off alone or dared go anywhere and be noticed. The same negative principles applied to academic endeavors. Anything less than the highest marks were deemed not good enough. You could always do better. It wasn't God or religion that demanded this perfection. Survival was what mattered, and unless you were at the top of the capitalist pyramid, you weren't considered surviving. Reading the upper paragraph, it seems pretty winny, to be honest. I'm grateful that my parents cared. I just never want to do this to my daughter or son. I want them to live, make mistakes, learn the hard way on occasion, and actually be proud of themselves. At nearly 30, now just starting to do this myself. Start a long distance relationship with somebody I met in a chat room. Drink alcohol before they're 18. Alcoholism runs in the family and I also have my issues with it. If I ever have kids I want to at least try to protect them from that. Unrestricted internet on my own computer in my own room when I was 12 onward. Eat in my room. The crumbs. The bugs. Never again. Give them more siblings than fingers on their hands. Smoke pot through high school. It was our family bonding activity. Nothing against pot smokers, but it 100% affects your brain in a negative way, especially the developing brain of a teenager. My mom acted like I'm some kind of overprotective parent when I told her I won't allow marijuana in my house. Spend long hours home alone. I think you'd actually go to jail for that these days. But when I was 8 or 9, I started staying home alone after school. I was a latchkey kid and was always told to relock the door and never open it to anyone except one of my parents. During the summer months, summer vacation, I'd spend entire days home alone. If I didn't wake up early enough, I'd wake up to an empty apartment or house and would just putz around. When I was younger I'd mainly watch my small collection of Disney movies or put in some age inappropriate movie. Something else I'd never let my kids do, like Pink Floyd, The Wall or The Breakfast Club. Or I might sit at a little desk I had in the corner of the dining room and draw or color. I remember one year my dad made out a schedule indicating when I should go outside and come back in. He had a pager/beeper which he mainly used for work. He worked for a landscaping company, and this was back in the late 1980s, before cell phones, and I'd beep him and punch in certain codes. 688 was for out, meaning I was outside. 46 was for in, meaning I was back inside. 65 was for okay, which was a check-in, or to be used in lieu of in, or out due to bad weather, or if I didn't want to go out. If I needed him to call, I'd punch in the phone number. As I got older, he'd set certain chores for me to do on certain days. Like every day was to clean the kitchen. Then on Mondays I'd do these chores. Tuesdays those chores. And so on. I think he gave me a free day, except the kitchen, which only took a few minutes. I'd never do that with my kids. If I ever get married and have any, if I needed to leave them at home, I'd make sure they have a babysitter. During the summer, I'd enroll them in various summer camps or programs. Barring that, I'd send them to my parents, to the wife's parents, or even take a week or two off and spend some time with them. Get tattoos. My mom let me get my first one at the age of 14. I have 5 by the time I was 18. I regret them all today. My parents were strict, so this is about my husband's mom, who was super lax after the divorce when he was 13. She wanted to be the liked one, so him and his 2 brothers did what they wanted to. He wasn't allowed to drink liquor, but basically drink and smoking weed was a free-for-all. When he turned 16, she let his high school girlfriend live with them for 2 years. He also graduated a year late because weed and video games was more fun, and she called him out of school to let him stay home. She approved him taking minimal classes in high school his last year. Why he graduated late, and later admitted it was because she got another year of child support. We are about to have our first child and he always nopes pretty hard at the thought of us allowing him to do any of the above things. They have a pretty contentious relationship now, after he woke up and realized how crappy her parenting was. Explore the woods behind our house all day with zero supervision. I got lost on several occasions. Somehow found my way back before night. What the frick was wrong with my parents, lol. Roam around the neighborhood etc at a very young age. I was smart enough to know where I lived, but there were really no boundaries or rules from my parents. I hung out with different people in the neighborhood. Sometimes older we would smoke cigs, drink alcohol. I wanna talk to my kids a lot. My parents hardly ever talked to me. Give me absolutely no responsibilities. No chores. No anything. Now I'm a lazy piece of crap who procrastinates all the time. My parents told me that I could travel as soon as I could save up enough money on my own to pay for a trip. I got my first job at 15 and worked 4 shifts a week. My parents thought I would blow all the money from said job on junk, but I saved every penny and went backpacking through Europe with one other female friend at the age of 16. We met up with a long-time online friend from Sweden along the way who finished the journey with us. At the time, I thought it was so cool, and I thought my parents were the best. But they were losing their minds and actually reported me as missing when I went too long without contacting them. They really struggled with letting me go, but ultimately decided that they couldn't go back on their promise, especially since I had shown a lot of work ethic and commitment for a 16-year-old. Luckily, I made it back safe and did it all again at 18. I'm now 24 with a 4-year-old and the thoughts of ever letting him do any of that so young is terrifying. To make matters worse, my son is just like me so far. Please pray for me. Reddit. Ride in the back of the truck. It's illegal now, but I feel bad that my kids will never have the experience. Looking back on it, my parents made some very smart decisions with me growing up. I didn't eat that much sugary food, and I was pretty active. One thing that I wouldn't do would be signing them up for an instrument unless I know that they're 100% interested in it. My parents saw that signing me up for piano did wonders for me and did the same thing with my brother, and he hated it. Be a picky eater. Yeah, you can go ahead and sleep 3 days of the week at your friend's house. A little off topic. This isn't something my parents allowed me to do. They forced me to do it. My dad was super religious and would force everyone to go to church. It wasn't your typical Catholic church or Christian church with a pastor or anything like that. There were people who were designated leaders of the church and their family would have every church member come to the house for church on Wednesdays and Sundays. The owner of the house would lead the church meeting. Every member would take turns saying prayers and reading a testimony of their choosing from the Bible and give their thoughts on it. Anyway, my dad forced us to go. If we were sick with a cold, too bad. If we had a lot of schoolwork or were doing important projects, too bad. If he did decide to let us stay home from church to be sick or do schoolwork, it was maybe 3 times a year. If we were overwhelmed with schoolwork or got sick again after he had let us stay home, he would throw a huge fit and go off on us about how we missed church already and we are going to hell for wanting to stay home. I ended up missing out on some after school college credit courses that would have given me an extra 3 or 4 college credits for like $50 per class instead of full costs of classes, books, and tuitions in college. All because they ran till 7 on Wednesday nights and that was when church was. I begged him to let me do it to save money. My mom divorced him but he had custody. Begged him to let me do it. My counselors asked him to reconsider. Nothing would change his mind. So I paid full price when I went to college, about 5x as much per class with textbooks alone. I dropped out and wasted far more money than I could have. So I'd never force my kids to go to church. Have complete freedom. My dad gave me free range and never disciplined me. My kids gonna learn today. New Brunswick. Go play in the forest. Used to go so far in that I'd have trouble finding my way back. Only got severely lost once where I found my way back after dark because of lights I could see faintly in the distance from atop a tree. Got yelled at for missing dinner. Came across quite a few bears, coyotes, and moose, but luckily they never paid much attention to me. Drank from streams, ate wild berries and apples, and built fires to cook snakes and frogs. Drink way too much soda. Basically treated it like any other beverage. Granted I was a beanpole with a bottomless pit for a stomach so no harm. No foul but geez what a terrible idea to put in a kid's head. My mother was very lenient with me because I was intelligent as a child. My grandma would watch me a majority of the time and she always had me drawing/painting with her, making music, watching Jeopardy, or gardening. I was fascinated with all of it, and school bore me to tears. I even took a test that moved me from the 1st grade to the 2nd grade, within the first month of class starting, when we had to move away from my grandparents. Because of my stepfather's work, my mother just let me be. When it came to school, she wouldn't ask if I did my homework or what I learned, because she assumed I was smart enough to do the right thing. I was not. I became extremely lazy and apathetic towards my education. Ended up becoming an average student, just because I didn't apply myself. I tried to change this around high school, but I was stuck in my ways. Ended up not even trying to get into college. Applied to one and made the academic probation list. Wasn't feeling it, so I never accepted. Now I'm 30, with a crap job and nothing to show for the past 13 years I've been out of school. No matter how smart my kids are, I'm still going to be invested in their academics and make sure they stay motivated to find something they are passionate about, something they can be proud of. ride the trains and subways in the city, alone at 12 years old. This was in Buenos Aires, early 90s. To me this was a big adventure. I loved it. It wasn't really that my parents allowed it because they didn't really know. They thought I was in school or hanging out with the neighborhood kids. Now, 25 years later, living in a metropolitan city in the US, there's no way I'd let my kids do all the stupid things I did when I was younger. Not play any sports and never give a crap in gym class. People turning their kids into hermits who never have any fun. Play video games / watch TV / be on the internet for hours with no supervision as to what they are watching or what websites they are getting on. Jesus Christ.